really well, super well, like they're married and stuff. So see, you're the scientific side.
I'm the scientific
couple.
side.
So she's going to talk about the science of the honeybee. I hope you, and how long have you had these now? What, 4, 3?
So my husband started bees in 2001 or 2021. I did not get into bees until 2022. So I was one of those people that stood way far in the back and watched him handle the bees with whatever knowledge he had at the time. Because I honestly am not a big fan of insects. I hate flying bugs. So don't ask me how on earth I managed to start loving bees. But again, my name's Jenny. This is my about 3rd year, so I'll be going into my 3rd year of beekeeping. Along with Jeff, I also got past the certification test for the beginning part of the Master Beekeeper program at UGA. So it's been a journey for me as well. I've really gotten to the science part of it, so that's kind of why I volunteered. I really hope I don't bore you too much because I do tend to like to give out a lot of useless information. But what I have found about useless information, they make really good trivia questions. So if any of you guys like doing trivia, write some stuff down because you never know when you're gonna need to use it. So with that, we're gonna start. Science of honeybees, the big obvious. Yes, the easiest part of the day. Honeybees are insects. Easiest part of the day. Now, why is that important to us when we see up here insecticidal problems? That's gonna be because while bees are beneficial to us, other bees, other pollinators are beneficial to us. Some insects, humans believe to not be so beneficial. We actually call them pests. And so we have, as humans, have created chemicals to deal with those insects that are a little pesky to us, especially because they not only pass on diseases, but they also compete with our crops when we're trying to raise food for ourselves and other people. So it has come up to be a problem, and it will come up in your yard as being a problem for your bees because you will come in contact with a lot of different kinds of chemicals, and you'll see problems that might arise in your yard because of that. So just be aware, there are chemicals out there that we do use that can harm bees. Our neighbors, if you have neighbors nearby, it's always good to help educate your neighbors, become friendly to them so that they do know you have bees, so that if they are using any chemicals on their lawn or especially spraying for mosquitoes, that one's a really big one, that they know that you have bees so you can help protect your bees in the yard, and then know signs of chemical, pesticide, poisoning, things like that. Because they can be detrimental to your bees. So not only a problem for our bees, but also we know save the pollinators out there. We want to be good stewards of not only our bees, but also the other pollinators because they are part of the environment as well. This slide is full of scientific terms. Bees are animals, obviously not plants, but bees do like plants, so that's a good thing. They are in the phylum Arthropoda, jointed legs, just remember that. Class Insecta, so they are in the insect class. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because there are characteristics that put them in there that our bees definitely have. Order Hymenoptera, membrane-like wings. Don't talk too much about that, but just kind of have that idea in your head, and there are some other characteristics that put them in there into Hymenoptera. And family Apidae, and I believe that term kind of stands for long-tongued. Within the family, our bees are in the genus Apis, and then there are about five species, depending on what you read. You're going to see a lot of scientific species names. Some of them are related, some of them are not. but just some of to look at, and I am not going to try to say all of these names. I'm going to say the easy ones. The top one, there wasn't a lot of information about that one. Dorsata and Florea. So Apis dorsata, I believe, is known as the giant honeybee. You can find these guys usually around Asia. With dorsata and Florea is going to be the dwarf honeybee. So big and little. These guys are interesting because they are open air comb. They draw their comb up in open air in single comb. So it's actually really cool to look at pictures of them. So they're not going to be the cavity nesters like our bees are. So just interesting facts. The next one is going to be Apis cerana. Now you're probably going to hear this one a lot more because this one is more known as the eastern honeybee, and you can find them in Asia, and they're of particular interest to us because you're going to hear of Varroa destructor, which is that nice little mite that likes to live on our western honeybees. They naturally live on eastern honeybees and do not cause problems on them. So they have a nice symbiotic relationship where they don't really bother each other at all, but have become a problem for ours. Now what we're concerned with is Apis mellifera. So we're looking at the species mellifera. Now within that species, we're looking at a bunch of different subspecies or races. So when you're looking at getting bees, you're gonna probably hear people calling them different races of honeybees, but they're all gonna be Apis mellifera something subspecies. So ours is Apis mellifera, western honeybee. You might also hear them called the European honeybee. I don't like that term just because you're gonna find Apis mellifera throughout, not just in Europe, but also the Middle East and Africa. So they range from a lot of different environments, from temperate cold environments, kind of like here, all the way up, like weather up in the United States, so in Europe, but you can also find them in arid desert regions like the Middle East, and also in a lot of different places in Africa. So they also, whereas Apis cerana, you're gonna find a lot in the tropics. Apis mellifera, there are some tropical areas, but a lot of them range pretty much on down through different environments. So that is actually really pretty cool that you can find them in a variety of different areas. Fossils for honeybees themselves, about 30 million years ago, or 30 million years, they found a fossil is about 30 million years old where they found bees and have found, like a lot of other animal species, have not changed very much over that time period. So honeybees have stayed pretty similar to what they are now. Now here's one of these trivia questions. Can anybody tell me if bees, Apis mellifera, or bees, honeybees themselves, are native to North America? You don't count.
I'm not saying.
Go ahead, in the pink. They're not. Actually, they have fossils about 15 million years old that do show that one time in North America we did have a honeybee. Unfortunately, they're just extinct. But you are right. Today, the Apis mellifera honeybee that we have in North America is not native, but at one time we did, and they were known as Apis nearctica. So there's that good trivia question to have for you in your back pocket. I have read that there's anywhere from 20-something to 40-something different subspecies of Apis mellifera. Only about 5 or 6 are of interest to us, probably more like 3 or 4. I'm going to say they average out around 30 different subspecies of Apis mellifera, and their distribution, there's multiple models on where they came from, how they distributed, some from Asia, some from Africa, some coming out of Europe. So if you're ever interested in that, Keith Delaplane, he was a professor at UGA, is actually writing a book and coming out one in October. If you're interested in being geeky and looking that stuff up, he has done a lot of presentations on the geography of honeybees, so it's actually really interesting. Now, talking about subspecies or races of honeybees, one of the biggest interest for that is going to be Apis mellifera linguistica. You guys are going to know them as the Italian honeybees. Now, each of these different races have different characteristics that beekeepers can be interested in. The Italian honeybees are probably going to be best suited for your beginner beekeepers. One, because they are the most gentle out of all of the races. They also are of interest because they do build up in their population pretty quickly and also produce a lot of honey. So that is why they are very popular in the United States right now with commercial beekeepers and even hobbyists. For hobbyists reasons, they're gentle, but also they produce a lot of honey. Some other ones you're probably going to hear about might be Apis mellifera carnica, or the carniolan. I call them the carnival bee, but carniolan bees. They tend to be a little more gentler as well. They are losing my thought. Sorry. Varroa resistant is some of the characteristics that they are finding with this race of honeybee as well, where a lot of the interest is coming with the carniolans. So they're not necessarily better honey producers or things like that. The one other thing is that with Italians, because they build up so quickly, they can also go through their honey stores really quickly. So something that new beekeepers need to be aware of is if you have Italians, that they can starve because there are so many of them, they will eat all of the honey over the winter. So carniolans don't tend to build up quite the way that Italian honeybees do. Another one you might hear about are going to be Russian bees. They tend to be a little feistier, so not the best for beginner beekeepers. But again, another one of those bees that people like for the Varroa resistance that are being shown from this particular honeybee. Some other ones that you might hear, Apis mellifera, or the German black bee. Those were the ones that were originally brought over to the United States in the 1600s. They came out of favor. They can tend to be a little feistier as well. And they were a little more susceptible to common diseases. So settlers first used them, but they have now kind of made themselves to the wayside, and a lot of genetic testing still finds some of those genetics out there in the wild populations, because as we know, bees will swarm and fly away and make homes in the forests. So they still do find some populations of the German black bee out there. And the last one you'll probably hear about is going to be Apis mellifera sculata. A lot of you guys will know them as the Africanized honeybee. So those are the ones that the media built up as being really, really scary, also known as the killer bee. They're used a lot in South America for their honey production, and those beekeepers down there have learned to keep those bees even with their aggression. So they are very aggressive, not a bee that we really want you to have in genetics in the United States. They have made their way up in the southwestern United States across Texas, and you can even find them in Florida, southern parts of Florida. We are a little cooler, so they don't tend to like our weather, but there have been some genetics a little bit discovered, kind of around some of the areas. So just be aware when you hear about us talking about, aggressive bees and wanting to keep more gentle bees, you might hear the word scutellized bees thrown around out there. So that's just kind of what that's referring to. So now we'll get into a little more of the science. So the class insect kind of refers to 3 different regions of body parts. You got the head, the thorax, and the abdomen, and each part of those comes with other parts as well. So you have the head, the thorax, the abdomen. You also have, with the insect class, 1 to 2 pairs of wings, just depends. Our honeybees have 2 pairs of wings. 3 pairs of legs, so they'll have 6 legs, not 8 like your spiders, so spiders are not in that. And 1 pair of antennae. Can't forget the nice little feelers up there. Bees also have exoskeletons. It's kind of like a suit of body armor. There are a bunch of different plates put together with a nice little stretchy membrane. And then bees, believe it or not, actually have their own little kind of body hair. Some of it is modified for different purposes. And to me, they're really cute little fuzzy little bees. When they are first born, they got a lot of hair and they're just really cute to me. So again, 2 pairs of wings, 3 pairs of leg, and 1 pair of antennae. Now to get into a little more of the nitty gritty, you're looking at the head, so it's easy to start from the front and go to the back. You have your sensory organs, your eyes, which are compound. Bees can actually see in the ultraviolet light range, which makes flowers look a little different to them than they do us. They have the antenna. They actually are good for smell, taste, feel, temperature, humidity, gravity, and will help them with their flight. If you actually watch bees though, I don't know how well it actually works because they look really clumsy in flight when they land on the little deck and run into each other. It's actually quite amusing. Their mouth parts, especially for the worker bees, they're going to be using those mandibles, mouth parts and mandibles for manipulating wax. The mouth parts, the biggest part for that one is going to be their sucking tongue, because they will use that tongue to exchange nectar from the foragers to the workers inside the hive. And they also, something not listed is they do have some glands, mandibular glands and the pharyngeal glands. Those are important because they do certain tasks as far as keeping control within the hive and also feeding brood. Then you get, whoops, did I miss part? The thorax, legs. Again, they're jointed legs. I did not bore you with all of the nice little special names for each part of the legs because that was even too much for me. Wings, if you look at the wings, they do look membrane-like, which is one characteristic that puts them in the order Hymenoptera. And then muscles within the thorax to move those wings. But not only do those muscles move those wings, but they also use those muscles to help generate energy during the winter to keep them warm within the hive. Then we're going to move down to the last segment. The segment between the thorax and the abdomen looks a little pinched, so that is a nice characteristic of these guys. They do have a heart. Bees do have a heart, even though they do sting you. They're just doing it out of the love for their hive. But they do have a heart. Trivia question, it is 5-chambered. We have a 4-chambered heart. Bees have 5. They also have spiracle openings. Spiracles are what they use to breathe. Pretty much all you need to know about that. They do have a gut. Within that gut, the worker bees have something called a honey stomach, where they unload the nectar and then offload it to their friends back at home to process and make into honey. So the honey stomach is not actually a true stomach. It's not where they do the digestion. That is actually the ventriculus. Fun word. Next is going to be your reproductive glands. For the workers, they don't really have ovaries because that is the job of the queen. The queen is laying the eggs. So the worker bees kind of have a little more modified with that sting gland. So we'll get into that in a second. Queens have ovaries and a fun thing called a spermatheca, which holds the sperm after she mates with the drones so that she can fertilize and lay those eggs. And males have testes and the special apparatus that they use to mate with the queen. The worker bees have wax glands, so they can help create that lovely gold that you call wax on your frames, which allow the bees to help with that reproduction and raise their brood. So that stuff is very important to have. And then next, they also do produce pheromones. Like I said, they have, the queen has a mandibular gland for pheromones, not found in the abdomen. She also has something called tergal glands, which are found in the abdomen. And the workers also produce pheromones. They produce one that is a very nice smelling one. My nose is not that great. I have never smelled it before in my life, but I've been told it smells citrusy and a little bit like lemongrass. That pheromone is their scent pheromone, and it helps attract the other foragers, workers back to the hive, things like that. And that behavior that you see there, you will see that in your hive, especially after you take it apart and put it back together. Because that is that worker trying to put off that scent gland to kind of bring back the other workers to the hive. And if we create a lot of confusion when we do our inspections, I have seen the bees do that. And at the beginning I was like, what are they doing? And so now I know they're just trying to bring back all of the workers after that confusing ordeal of doing inspections. But I also had another beekeeper, I don't know if she was joking or really being serious about getting down right into your little bee butts, because they don't all sting you, I promise, and sniffing their butts. So if you want to go sniff bee butts to see if you can smell that nice citrusy scent, go right ahead. It doesn't work for me. I've actually tried, but I don't smell it. And then last, the sting. Do we need to say any more? We already know that once a worker bee stings, that barb gets stuck in her skin and unfortunately rips her guts out. So I really wish they wouldn't sting me, but they do, and unfortunately the worker bees die. Queens also have a stinger. She uses it for a little bit more of a nefarious purpose. When a queen might be the first to emerge, Bobby, not hatch.
That's correct.
Okay, you're welcome. To emerge from her emerge from her queen cell, she will go around and chew open the other queen cells and use that stinger to actually sting her sisters so that she becomes the queen bee of the hive. So hers is a little more nefarious purpose. Her barb is a little smaller, so I guess theoretically she could sting you, but it shouldn't stick. But she goes around and uses it to kill her sisters. So yeah, there's that. So next, the 3 types of bees that we're gonna find in our hives. Our worker bees are gonna be most numerous. Our queen, we're just gonna have one queen, at least I hope we do. On a rare occasion, I have seen pictures of 2 queens. Usually doesn't last very long, but never happened to me. I've only been in it for 3 years, so. And then our nice fat little male drone bees. They're so cute. I love them so much. I think the biggest reason is they don't sting. They don't have stingers. So you can manipulate and abuse these guys because they get abused by the women all the time. So, you know, we can carry on that tradition by manipulating those male drones and just making you maybe a little braver with handling some bees. Now with these 3 different type of bees, there is a system. Bees are considered what we call eusocial, so another little more of that geeky science stuff. They're eusocial, they have a social component to the way they live, and it actually really helps and benefits them and makes them as successful as they are. And there are some books out there that document how successful and why they're successful with the setup that they do. Some characteristics of being eusocial is that there is cooperative brood care. The worker bees do pretty much most of the work in the hive. They're taking care of the queen, raising the brood, feeding the brood, all of that. So they're cooperatively working together for that brood care. And then some go out and bring food back to feed the rest of the hive. They also have a division of reproductive labor. So not only do we have the female worker, but we also have the queen. She is responsible for laying those eggs and producing. She pretty much doesn't do anything else in the hive except for that, other than using her pheromones to control all of the other ladies in the hive. But she's pretty much laying eggs all day long and all year if she can. That's the second characteristic. The third characteristic is they do have overlapping generations. And if you don't have overlapping generations, then your hive's going to be in trouble. Because you want to be able to see older bees, younger bees, and those different various stages that we'll talk about. So kind of talking a little bit about the difference between the females and the males. This is a little more sciencey, is that we have diploid females. So what that means is they have 2 sets of chromosomes. Another trivia question. How many chromosomes does a female bee have if they're diploid? Does anybody know? How many chromosomes do we have how many chromosomes do we get from one parent? As a human, not bees. 23, right? So if we get 23 from mom, 23 from dad, can I do my math? 46, there we go. Bees start out with 1 set of 16 chromosomes, and getting it from the sperm and the mom, they will end up with 32. So again, one of those other useless trivia questions, they have 32 pairs of chromosomes. The male, however, actually comes about as an unfertilized egg through some crazy scientific magic. The name for that is parthenogenesis. Good luck spelling that.